It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC Vegas 28. We got a big heavyweight showdown in the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Augusto Sakai. I would like to tell you guys this fight is going to be an absolute war. A fan-friendly type of fight, but I cannot guarantee you that. It does have some potential for fireworks. We may see a knockout. Both these guys carry big power. But Rozenstruik, on the other hand, as of recently, he's been a little bit hesitant, a little bit gun-shy. I hope he loosens up in there. He lets things go. We know the potential that he has. Since bursting on the scene in the UFC, he was knocking dudes out left and right. As of recently, Augusto Sakai has shown that he has an amazing heart in there. He's continuously walked forward. His fight with Alistair Overeem was very impressive. Even though he was on the losing end of that fight, he does show to be a true warrior inside the octagon. So hopefully these guys deliver, and we have a nice main event this Saturday. Overall, the card is not the most stacked, but it's the UFC. We got some entertaining fights. We got some guys trying to make a name for themselves and some interesting matchups. We'll be getting to all of that here very shortly. First and foremost, please do like this video. Please like this video. It really helps me out, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Catch me over on all the social media. I have them down below. And you guys know the new routine. We're going to be talking some recent MMA news. We're going to be recapping this previous weekend, which we had Bellator 259 and we had UFC Vegas 27, which it was another profitable night. Went 2 for 2, hit both of my 2 plays there on the night. So can't wait to catch up with you guys there and tell you all about that. And I'll have timestamps here for you guys. If you don't want to hear all the mumbo jumbo in the beginning, you guys can skip right forward to UFC Vegas 28, right to whatever fight you want to hear about. Timestamps will be below. And with no further ado, let's get it. So, not necessarily a big week in regards to MMA news. No real big breaking stories, but we'll run through a couple of the topics that have been going on. It looks like Zhang wants a neutral location for a Rose rematch after UFC 261 boos. She better just even hope that she can even get an immediate rematch or anything like that. There's been some rumors about Carla Esparza pushing her way up there for a rematch against Rose. There's been we're going to talk about the performance that she put on here this past weekend in a minute. But you know what? I don't think that Zhang is doing herself any favors for being outspoken about stuff like this. I don't think she's going to win over, any of the fans over here. And personally, I expect it only to get worse for her. Not saying it's right or it's wrong, but you guys can mark my words. I expect the next time we see her out, we might start to see more and more boos. And obviously, I'm not going to get into the details and the reasons of why and if they're right or wrong or any of that. But you guys kind of catch my drift, and you guys know, the world is a wild place right now. There's a lot of big things going on in the world. And I don't know. I have a feeling that Zhang could turn into some kind of enemy if she fights over here on U.S. soil after coming out and saying something like that, especially. Joshua Fabia parts ways with Diego Sanchez as far as training him. I don't know all the details about what's going on with them, and quite honestly, I don't really want to know. Just letting you guys know that he's not hanging Diego Sanchez up like a piñata and head kicking him like he was. At least hopefully that's not the case anymore. And if they want to throw down, because it looks like there's some kind of beef, I did hear some rumors Conor McGregor would be willing to host that event. Would you guys tune in to see those two throw down? I probably would. I would love to see Diego drop some elbows through Fabia's skull. So, you could mark me down for a ticket there. Let's see what else we got going on. Mackenzie Dern versus Maryna Rodriguez is targeted for the near future. Two of the best women fighters in the world. I would love to see that fight. I would put a little asterisk next to that. Also, looks like Kevin Lee will be taken on. I just saw this recently. I don't believe it's here. The very, very tough undefeated fighter. Name slipping my mind right now. Excuse me, guys. I'll get back to you on that. Sean Brady. Sean Brady, the undefeated fighter who's been looking to be very, very well-rounded and dangerous. He'll be taking on Kevin Lee. That's a good fight for him because, taking out a guy like Kevin Lee, of course he has all the talent in the world. He's a very a tough, recognizable fighter in the UFC. It's all about the name, though. That's what I'm talking about. It's about that name. You get that victory over Kevin Lee, and people will start taking notice. Luke Rockhold excited about a possible match with Kevin Holland. Curious what your guys' thoughts are upon this. I would love to see this match. Both of these guys have some question marks behind them. Kevin Holland with the takedown defense. Luke Rockhold with the way that his career just fell off a cliff. At one point in time, one of the best fighters walking the planet Earth, the UFC champion, and all of a sudden his chin left him. He seemed like he was very slow in there. Very bad striking defense. I would love to see that fight. I'm curious if you guys would also like to see that fight. So that's a fight you could pencil me in for. I would like to see that fight. So Tyson Fury will now be supposedly taking on Deontay Wilder. We'll see how things start to move forward with that whole thing. Boxing is a wild sport. It looks like 1 second Tyson Fury is going to be fighting Anthony Joshua. They can't get all their stuff together. That fight ain't going to happen. I'm a little disappointed. Now we get to see Tyson Fury dismantle Deontay Wilder once again. So, you could pencil that in. Shout out to Jacare Souza. He's no longer under UFC contract. He's had a hell of a career. I don't know what's next for him. Is it Bellator? But shout out to Jacare. Been watching him since the Strikeforce days. Former Strikeforce champion. A nasty grappler. One of the best grapplers we've ever seen, in the cage, fighting in mixed martial arts. Put his striking together as well. He's been in some wars. He's always put it out there for us as fans. And shout out to Jacare Souza. I hope he signs with Bellator. Add him over there. Add him to that roster. And, I'll watch him fight. I think he still has a little bit left in there. Let's see what else we got. I'm sure a lot of you guys heard about the news. Derek Lewis. Somebody tried to break into Derek Lewis's car. That's not a good choice. Looks like the guy was actually able to walk himself to the cop car because he did get caught. It looks like Lewis called the cops or they got them there. He was able to walk himself into the car and set himself down. Looked like he had some type of bandage on his head. I'm a little surprised that he was even able to walk. It looks like Derek Lewis took it easy on him because we all know if Derek Lewis wanted to, he could have killed this guy within probably 30 seconds. A couple, maybe a half dozen good smashes. Derek Lewis smashes ground and pound with the back of the pavement against the guy's head. I think that guy ain't walking to a cop car. But, good for Derek Lewis. He didn't want to put himself, I guess, in a bad position. He's a family man. Shout out to Derek Lewis, who will be fighting for the belt, it seems. Alexander Volkanovski hoping the rumors of Zabit Magomed Sharapov as him retiring is not true. I really hope that's not the case as well. A lot of you guys have heard about these rumors for some time. I don't know exactly what's going on with all that, but hopefully it's one of those like Khamzat Chimaev cases and he changes his mind. But it seems to be a little bit more serious than that. And, that's pretty much it. Not a lot of big news there. But again, I hope you guys like the new format. I'm going to run you guys through a couple of things that have been going on as of recently. You guys comment below. I always love to hear your guys' thoughts upon all that. And let's get into these recaps of this past weekend. So we'll do a quick recap of Bellator 259. As I said, we'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. We'll just talk about some of the more notable fights. No official plays from me over here, on this card. Danny Sabatello takes out Brett Johns. I told a couple of you guys on Instagram, for those of you guys that are listening, you guys were asking about a dog and whatnot. I said Danny Sabatello is a guy that looked very impressive, fighting on Dana White's Contender Series. I believe he fights out of American Top Team. Not the most fan-friendly style, and his opponent doesn't have the most fan-friendly style either. Brett Johns, hence the reason why he was cut from the UFC. Brett Johns is a very talented fighter. Both these guys like to grapple, and Danny Sabatello takes out Brett Johns, so that is impressive. He's now 11-1. We'll keep an eye on him moving forward. Sumiko Inaba takes out Christina Katsikis. If you guys saw the weigh-in there, I'm sure a lot of you were watching that fight. She's now 2-0. She gets the knockout in the 3rd round. Saad Awad, shout out to Saad Awad, gets the knockout in the 1st round. A long-time Bellator fighter, always has dynamite in his fists when he steps in there, and they exploded there against Nate Andrews. This was the fight of the night here, man. In a sense for me, I like this fight here. Hannah Guy, shout out to Hannah Guy. She takes out Valerie Lareda. Of course, all you guys know Valerie Lareda. She's been one of the more polarizing figures, especially over in Bellator, but on the MMA scene. She has all this hype behind her. She is a nasty striker. She carries some good power in her hands. She's a good striker all around. Needs to work on her overall game. But you guys know the big reason why she's getting a lot of hype. You know, she's dancing after her knockout. She's big on social media. She has all that type of stuff going on. Well, this girl, Hannah Guy, steps in there. At the time, she's only 2-1 as a professional. Not that Valerie has much more experience, but Valerie, a long-time martial artist. Hannah Guy was extremely tough in there. Brought the fight to Lareda. Hannah Guy went through some early adversity. She got tagged a little bit, jumped right back up, was bloodied up, continued to press and bring the fight, and showed to have some really, really solid grappling, and used her grappling to defeat Valerie Lareda. She won a unanimous decision. And I like the energy she brought. She was raining down some ground and pound in the 2nd round, and she was kind of shouting out, making those noises that you see Valerie do to a lot of her opponents. So, I kind of enjoyed watching that. Watching Valerie get a little bit of a taste of her own medicine. And I'm not going to say I'm not a fan of Valerie's or I don't like her for whatever reasons, but she's not really my style of fighter. She seems more of, one of those new age type of fighters on the Instagram seeking attention and whatnot, and there seems to be a little something off for her. As soon as she loses, she's just constantly showing her butt all over her Instagram and whatnot. Go back to the drawing board, fix some things up, and Valerie has a lot of talent. I could see her coming back and knocking some girls out. So we do know she's getting some of the best training in the game. But again, we're going to do a little feature for this girl, Hannah Guy. Keep an eye on her. Hopefully she takes a lot of that momentum that Valerie had and it goes over to her, because she had an awesome personality throughout the entire weekend. Everything I saw from her seems to be a classy chick, a cool chick. And I hope she keeps it moving. I hope she gets a nice fight moving forward and starts to make a name for herself, because she has the heart of a champion. That's for sure. You could see it in there. So shout out to Hannah Guy. Give her a follow on Instagram. Do I even follow her? Yeah, give her a follow. Go follow her. Hannah Guy MMA. What else we got over here? Austin Vanderford was victorious. Takes out Fabian Edwards. Fabian was ranked pretty high at the time going into this fight in the middleweight division. Nice win there for Austin. Leandro Higo takes out Darian Caldwell. A split decision there. Shout out to Leandro Higo. Been on the Bellator scene for quite some time. Trains with some of the best Brazilian fighters in the world. And he's a solid fighter. Doesn't really always get the recognition maybe that he deserves. And then in the main event, Chris Cyborg knocks out Leslie Smith in the 5th round, defeating her once again for the 2nd time there. And now Chris Cyborg seems to be calling out Kat Zingano, which I'm for it. Kat has the big name. Kat Zingano is a very tough opponent, a little bit undersized there, but there's not a lot of women that fight in the featherweight division that are Chris Cyborg's size. In general, there's just not a lot of women that are her size. There's not a lot of featherweight fighters there. So I don't really have a problem with that. And what do you guys think? You want to see that fight next? I'm up for it. And that's going to be the Bellator 259 recap. Now let's get into the UFC card. Like I said, we made it a profitable night, 2 for 2. Let's get into it. UFC Vegas 27 recap. As I stated, it was another profitable event. Went 2 for 2 on this card. That now makes me 5 of 6 on the last 2 cards. A lot of money's been coming in. Shout out to everybody that rides with me on my plays. And let's start talking about this card. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. Damir Ismagulov takes out Rafael Alves. I told you guys the line was a little bit off in my opinion. And this guy, Rafael Alves, is a dangerous fighter. He had some moments here. His striking is heavy. It's ferocious. There was a moment in time where I felt like he kind of was putting some heat on Damir there. Damir, a little bit more of a boring fighter, but definitely seems to be in control in his fights. He was able to weather the storm, use his grappling, and pull off another victory there. Not sure if his stock really goes up there, though. David Dvorak takes out Juan Camilo Rondoros. Now, let's remember, Juan Camilo took this fight on very, very short notice, and shout out to him for even just stepping in the octagon against a guy in David Dvorak, who is one of the best flyweight fighters in the world. I'm sure the UFC will hook up Rondoros and give him some type of opportunity moving forward. Joshua Kulibao takes out the Chinese fighter Shealen Nordienbiki, and that's gonna give another loss to the Chinese mixed martial artists. As of recently, they really have been having a tough time winning as a whole. I think like one of the last 10 fights was victorious for the Chinese mixed martial artists fighting in the UFC. But they definitely can throw down, though. I think they'll iron things out. They'll fix some things. But a tough fight there for him anyway. I thought Joshua would probably handle business. In the next fight, Bruno Silva takes out Victor Rodriguez. I told you Bruno Silva has been looking really good. Victor Rodriguez is probably not UFC caliber, quite honestly. He seems to freeze up in there and gets hurt. I would like to see him, go to a smaller type of promotion and get some fights and try to, build up his skills. He doesn't need to be fighting guys like Bruno Silva. Court McGee takes out Claudio Silva. Ben Rothwell takes out Chris Barnett. Not that impressive, though. They both seem to have issues with their cardio, in my opinion. Chris Barnett was out of this fight, and Ben Rothwell had opportunities to knock him out. Couldn't really do that. Just kind of put it on him in general, and then ended up getting a submission, which I don't even know how tight it was. I think that Barnett was just, he was ready to get out of there. So now, next fight brings me to my first play of this card. It was Jack Hermanson. It was a 5-unit play. It was my biggest play of the card. Not that my second was much smaller, but Jack Hermanson, I was all over him here. 5-unit play, grabbed him at -155 to take out Edmund Shabazian. Jack Hermanson has nasty ground and pound, nasty grappling. He's underrated. Edmund is still young and really needs to fix up some holes in his game. And that's what it was, man. Jack Hermanson all day. Shout out to everybody that took that play as well. Ricardo Ramos takes out Bill Algeo. Had that fight as a close fight going into it. Norma Dumont takes out Felicia Spencer. A lot of you guys were giving me slack for taking Dumont in this spot. Everybody was on Spencer. I did not touch it as an official play. I probably should have. But Dumont is a very well-rounded fighter. Spencer, she's good as well, but this was a close fight. I saw some things that pointed me to the direction of Dumont, and she got her hand raised. Jared Vandera takes out Justin Taffa. That was an entertaining fight. Shout out to Jared. It was a bloody one. Carla Esparza absolutely puts a beatdown on Xanin Yan. Xanin Yan, another Chinese fighter that took an L, as we've been talking about them taking L's here. Yan definitely has some nasty striking. You saw little glimpses of it, but she really needs to work on her takedown defense. A girl like Carla will put you to the test there. She may have some of the best wrestling in the division, and she's pushing her way up to potentially fighting for the belt again. Remember, she was the inaugural champ of the division. It's great to see her doing her thing. That was one of her better performances. The ground and pound was nasty. She put her in the crucifix and elbowed her up bad. Now, the main event, you guys know this was my other play. It was a 4.5 unit play on Rob Font. Grabbed it at excellent odds, -115, -120, almost basically a pick'em. And I was all over Rob Font here. I just felt that his boxing has been very clean, very accurate. He's the bigger fighter. He's more durable. He can take a shot. He's never been finished in a fight in regards to strikes. He's been submitted, I believe, but never been finished due to strikes. Cody, although he bounced back with that victory over Rafael Assunção, it was kind of a weird knockout. I mean, it was an awesome knockout, but I wasn't so much a believer that Cody got his groove back. Kind of like Stella. Remember Stella got her groove back? I didn't really believe Cody got his groove back. Got that knockout. I still think, and now it's coming out too, I still think he has some doubts about his chin. He did survive 5 rounds there, but I didn't think that he really wanted to engage into a war, which he probably would have got finished there. And I was all over Rob Font. And it's funny, if you're on Instagram and you read my bet write-up, I told you guys, don't take the prop on Font to get that knockout. Everybody else was saying, oh, Cody either wins by a decision or Rob gets that finish. I did not believe that to be the case at all. That's why, I said just take Rob Font straight up. The difference in those points compared to the prop, compared to straight up, was not much of a difference at all. And it's the fight game. Guys aren't always going to get knocked out, but, you'd rather have more opportunities to put money in your pocket. Just take him to win the fight however he does it. So shout out to Rob Font. He's moving through the ranks. He's talking a little reckless, though. He's talking about Aljamain Sterling is more of a threat, or he feels is a tougher matchup than Petr Yan. Stop that. Stop that, Font. Come on. I'm rolling with you over here now, and now you're saying, blasphemy over here. Don't do that. All right, so that's going to be the recap of Vegas 27. And let's get into the upcoming card. I know a lot of you guys are excited to talk about these fights. Let's do it. All right, another fight card awaits us. Let's scroll right down through this card. We got some big boys throwing down in the main event and co-main event spots. We also got another heavyweight bout there too, in Tanner Boser and Ilir Latifi. But we're going to kick things off in the lightweight division. We got Claudio Puelles taking on Jordan Leavitt. Jordan Leavitt, the Monkey King, is coming off a very, very impressive knockout. One of the more nasty slams that we've seen inside, I shouldn't even say inside the cage, inside any mixed martial arts bout. It's almost reminiscent to some of the Pride fights when we've seen Rampage power bombing dudes. Name's slipping my mind right now. You guys know who he power bombed too. Brazilian fighter, I believe. But anyways, this was a nasty slam knockout right here. And this guy Jordan Leavitt, since stepping in on Dana White's Contender Series, looked to be very impressive. Made easy work of Luke Flores. Luke Flores, he does have some experience over in LFA and whatnot. And Jordan Leavitt went in there and he pulled off the arm triangle choke, made it look very easy. Comes inside the UFC, fights a longtime veteran in Matt Wyman, makes it look very easy. He doesn't really have the typical look of a UFC fighter, man. He's very flexible, extremely flexible. You see him doing those splits and whatnot. Extremely confident. We haven't seen a lot of his striking. I want to see more of his striking. But there's an X factor to this guy. I'm willing to give it to him already at this point, at least in a matchup against a guy like Claudio Puelles. If Jordan's fighting some big time guy, I might start to look to fade him as far as the striking goes and whatnot. But in a fight like this, I'm all over Jordan. I like him here. I'm not going to say I'm crazy about a minus 230 line, but I definitely think he's going to handle business. Something about him I think he's going to show up again and take out a guy in Claudio. Claudio just really doesn't have that impressive of a resume. If you look at the guys he's defeated, it's been about 2 years, and Marcos Mariano, not a UFC fighter anymore. Felipe Silva, not a UFC fighter. A lot of these guys, these aren't really UFC caliber fighters. If you look at his resume, got knocked out by Martin Bravo, who then went on to lose 3 in a row. So I have not been that impressed. He is only 25 years old, so we might see some growth from him. He seems to be a little bit of a well-rounded fighter, has some submission skills, does have some striking. He's been working on his striking. I think that if he's going to go out there and win this fight, I think he's got to be able to kind of keep the fight standing for the most part, and I think he has to show some new flashes and wrinkles in his striking, and maybe we see Jordan Leavitt's striking get exposed. We really haven't seen him put to the test too much there. I think that's going to be the recipe. The frames are pretty much similar. Puelles is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. I don't expect that to mean too much. And I'm going to take the Monkey King. The Monkey King. I'm going to take him here. And if you guys remember that slam, man, I'm telling you, he was busting out the split and everything. More of a feminine type of guy. It's not really what you see inside the octagon every day, so it will be interesting. Puelles looks to be in great shape. Let's see if he can keep this fight standing and maybe expose some holes in the Monkey King's game. But I'm not sure if I really see it there. In the next fight, we got Montana De La Rosa taking on Ariane Lipski. Fight is taking place in the flyweight division. Montana De La Rosa coming in at a minus 200 here. If you're wondering why, because she really has had a tough time winning as of recently. The last draw, I think she kind of got lucky getting a draw there. She was in some bad situations there against Mara Bueno Silva. Definitely got worked against Viviane Araújo. Andrea Leah took her out. And her one win was against Mara Barella. But Montana De La Rosa has been putting in work over in Colorado at Team Elevation. Definitely getting some good training over there. You've seen some flashes in her striking and whatnot. She has some grappling, of course. You know, she is the wife of Mark De La Rosa, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Ariane Lipski. This is the main reason why I think Montana De La Rosa is a -200. Ariane Lipski looked horrible against Antonina Shevchenko. Got finished on the mat, got dominated there. And then Antonina Shevchenko shows right after that fight that she really hasn't grown there at all. Goes back to getting dominated on the mat herself. So I think that kind of it wasn't a good look for Ariane. Ariane, we've seen her flash with some submissions at times. Seen her pull off a knee bar against a girl in Luana, Carolina. I think Montana De La Rosa is much, much more competent on the mat there, so don't expect nothing like that, really. Montana De La Rosa is still only 26 years old. That's how young she was when she was on The Ultimate Fighter. It's crazy because look how grown her daughter is, too. But shout out to Montana De La Rosa, man. I like her. I think she's a solid fighter. She's extremely tough. We saw her in that Arroyo fight. She was all bloodied up and kept coming forward. Had some moments. I like Montana De La Rosa to win the fight here. And like I said, she's still very young. She still has a lot of promise in front of her. Ariane Lipski is also getting in some really solid training, though, too. Actually, she trains with Valerie Lareda. We talked about her earlier. She wasn't in the picture. But you see, a lot of recognizable faces here. We see Maryna Moroz, who we'll be talking about here in a little bit too. There's a lot of talented female fighters over at American Top Team. And Lipski has some striking. She has Muay Thai experience. I still think that De La Rosa should get the job done. The live line, we'll take a look at it. It's still right around -200. 1 inch reach advantage for Montana. She throws some nice straight punches. We'll see. You know how these women's fights are sometimes with these girls, man. This could be a close fight, but I'm not sure if I'm crazy about a line like that. You know, how confident would you be in Montana De La Rosa right now, -200 against almost anybody? Probably not too confident. I don't know. Alan Nugget Patrick taking on Mason Jones. Mason the Dragon Jones. This guy makes his UFC debut not too long ago, 4 months ago. Fights the very, very talented Mike Davis, a guy I've had the pleasure of having on my show. You know, Mason Jones had some moments in that fight where he impressed me there. I put a little asterisk next to his name, even though he had that loss there. Like I said, Mike Davis is very talented. Mason Jones is an extremely well-rounded fighter. He had big moments in that fight. He hurt Mike Davis. I think Mason Jones has some good power in his hands. He's, like I said, very well-rounded. He can grapple. He's strong. He's a physically fit dude. Coming into this fight with a 2-inch reach disadvantage, I don't expect that to play much of a factor here. I think Mason Jones, he has the youth on his side, over a decade less in age here. Alan Patrick lost 2 in a row against Scott Holtzman, Bobby Green. And, Alan Patrick, a guy that generally goes to decision, likes to kind of edge decisions out, likes to throw a lot of leg kicks, and, he has some striking there too. He's a well-rounded dude. I like the I don't want to say the UFC newcomer. He has one fight in the UFC. I like the relatively new UFC fighter and Jones. See him landing a nice shot here against Mike Davis. I think that he's going to bring this fight. But it's crazy too, man. Alan Patrick still in phenomenal shape at this age. But you know what? Just how the body looks isn't always the telling sign. The age will get you in one way or another. You'll be a little bit slower in there. Your awareness will be a little bit slower. And I expect the younger fighter to come out there and handle business. So, and the line's right around -300. It's a pretty hefty line. And this card has some interesting lines. You could look at them a couple different ways and how you want to attack them. -300 there. But I think Mason Jones gets the job done. Youssef Zalal taking on Sean Woodson. Sean the Sniper Woodson. This guy is a featherweight fighter that has a 79-inch reach, and he's 6'2". What a crazy frame he has. Coming off his first loss against Julian Juicy J Erosa. You guys know that's what Juicy J does. He spoils the party. Does it all the time. I still think that Sean Woodson's very talented. We talked about the frame. He throws nice straight punches down the pipe. He really knows how to pump that jab. He can make his opponents pay in a big way. And I expect him to have a clear advantage with the reach advantage, which he obviously does, 4 inches, and his overall frame. Youssef Zalal fights small for the division. So you're seeing one of the bigger fighters in the division against one of the smaller fighters in the division. I think that really benefits Woodson here. Zalal, I didn't really have a problem with him losing to Tybura because he's obviously one of the top up-and-comers in the game, in the division right now. But the loss to Sang-Woo Choi was a little suspect. I know he took that fight on short notice, but take note, Woo Choi was he is a very tall, rangy opponent as well. So, he was able to give some problems there to Youssef Zalal. I expect Sean Woodson to do that as well. Zalal, only 24 years old, very well-rounded. He can grapple, jiu-jitsu, can strike, he'll throw flying knees, he'll mix it up in all different types of ways. If you look at his victories, the Peter Barrett victory, not the biggest victory, the Jordan Griffin one, these are guys that are not in the UFC anymore. Austin Lingo, not a lot of big names, but Zalal still has a lot of promise. He's very young. I edge. I don't even want to say edge. I like Sean Woodson here. Line's minus 190. We'll take a look at the live line real quick. Yep, actually, action's coming in on Zalal too, so the line's only getting better on Woodson if you like him there. But again, not the best performance for Sean Woodson in his last fight. It was a little bit exposed in there, but I think he can put things together, and we could start to see him string off some victories. Still creeping up to the prime of his career as well. But the Moroccan Devil, a guy that I was pretty high on as he was coming up. Well, he still is coming up. He's so young, but you guys catch my drift. I don't like the way he looked as of recently, but Sean Woodson is the pick. Tanner Boser taking on Ilir Latifi. Fight taking place in the heavyweight division. Of course, Ilir Latifi, a longtime light heavyweight fighter. I remember him taking a fight in short notice against Alexander Gustafsson when Gustafsson's opponent fell out. I think it was supposed to be Gegard Mousasi. If you guys remember that, little throwback for you guys there. I've seen Ilir Latifi fight live. I've been right next to him, man. He's a solid man. He's a massive man, especially up here in the heavyweight division. Doesn't have to cut any weight. He's a guy, I hate to say it like that, but I've seen him kind of quitting there a little bit as of recently. I don't want to say it like that, man, but I kind of question, his heart in there at sometimes if you really look at some of his fights as of recently. But again, fighting some nasty dudes. They did go the distance with Derek Lewis, so, that is a good thing there. Ilir Latifi has some nasty kicks. He can throw some nasty kicks. He has power in his hands. Good takedown defense. He's a well-rounded fighter. He is 37 now, about to be 38. So he's definitely towards the end of his career. If he loses this fight, that's 4 in a row. You got to kind of wonder. Tanner Boser dropped the ball in a major way against Andrei Arlovski. Was extremely gun-shy in there. If you guys remember this, I had action on it, so I remember very clearly. He was very, very gun-shy in there. If he would have just brought the fight and let his hands go, he would have easily won the fight, in my opinion. But instead, he was doing a little in and out, and he was letting just time click off the clock. So, didn't show to have that good a fighter IQ. He should have known he was losing that fight. And as far as the heart goes as well, was very disappointed in his heart. Let that fight, he left it out there. He's going to come in here with a significant height advantage. The reach is pretty much the same here. This isn't actually an interesting fight. I'm going to edge Tanner Boser. I'm going to edge him. If he shows up and shows to have some of that ability that we've seen from him in the past, like when he was taking out guys like Pessoa and Felipe Lins, then, I could see him going out there and probably pulling off a decision. I don't expect a knockout. I don't expect a knockout here. I'm going to say a decision. Tanner Boser's probably going to get a decision here if he can be a little bit more active. And remember now, I think he made his UFC debut against Cyril Gane. He was able to survive that fight too. Actually had his moments in there too against Cyril Gane. Probably looked the best we've seen against Gane. So that is saying something. Just didn't have a good fight in his last fight. Let's see if he goes back to the drawing board and gets things going. You see the throwback to his old karate days with the mullet. Look at Tanner Boser with the brown belt, man. That's a classic picture there, man. The Canadians. Shout out to the Canadians. Yeah, but Boser is no joke at the same time. You guys know, got to give respect where respect's due. We're talking about UFC fighters, man. These are big, big boys. And I'm excited for that match. I like Ilir, man. Ilir's a good dude too, so yeah. Tanner Boser, I think the line may be a little bit high after the performance that he just put on, but he should get his hand raised. Maryna Moroz taking on Manon Fiorot. Manon, the French fighter, made her UFC debut not too long ago and looked phenomenal in it. 4 months ago, took out Victoria Leonardo, put on a clinic with her striking. There's no question that she's a very, very talented and fluid striker. 31 years old, in the prime of her career as far as the striking goes. Definitely can make her overall mixed martial arts game more. She could raise the level of her overall mixed martial arts game. I want to see a little bit more from her on the grappling side, but definitely looks to have some promise there as well. She's just an all-out professional, in my opinion. Maryna Moroz, the Iron Lady, she's had some flashes. I've seen her go out there and take out girls with, armbar them early, defeating talented women. Seen her, she lost to Carla Esparza and lost to Angela Hill. 2 talented fighters as of recently. Bounced back with the victory over Sabina Mazo and Mira Buena Silva. Those are 2 solid victories there. She's been putting things together. I know she's getting in that proper training over at American Top Team. 29 years old. I still think that we haven't seen the best Moroz that we'll see inside the octagon, so that's something to keep an eye on. I think that we'll see her game elevate here over the next year or right around right now. But saying all that, I'm still going to take Fiorot because she looked very, very good in her debut. I think she's going to have the edge in regards to the striking here. She just looks so poised and confident in there. And I'm going to take the French girl here over the Ukrainian fighter. But this is a solid fight here. Again, just keep an eye on Moroz. Don't be shocked if she's showing up all of a sudden. She's in phenomenal shape, and she's really, really getting it in with some of the best. This is a solid fight in the women's division here. It's a very, very solid fight in the women's flyweight division. The winner of this will definitely have some momentum moving forward. Now, as far as the line goes, we'll take a look at the live line here. Right around -150. I think that's reasonable. Right, it's accurate. The line is pretty accurate there. I wouldn't want to go too high on Fiorot. As I said, Moroz may surprise or may impress. But I like the French woman there. That's my pick. We got Roman Dolidze taking on Laureano Staropoli. Roman, man, this guy coming off a loss against Trevin Giles. That was a fight that was very close. Some people thought he won it. He was definitely getting pieced up in there. It was a little surprising to see him get worked the way that he was, because he's been handling business and he's been looking very impressive before that fight. Took out John Alon and Kadis Ibragimov, but again, Kadis is not UFC caliber, so you got to kind of look into these a little bit more. But I still think that Roman has a lot of potential inside the octagon. He is a talented fighter. He's a guy that can go out there and knock dudes out, no question about it. He's a nasty striker, has a lot of power. Needs to work a little bit on his overall grappling game, but still, even in that Giles fight, he showed some flashes. Giles can grapple, he can wrestle, and Roman was doing some reversals and some nice transitions. He looked good in there. He kind of gassed out, in my opinion. I'm a little bit worried about his cardio, actually. Hopefully he went back to the drawing board with his cardio and has that ready to go. He's going to have a nice reach advantage here. He has a 76-inch reach. He's naturally the bigger guy here. I do believe that. Staropoli a little bit thin for the division, a little bit tall, but he's a nasty striker in his own right. I remember him taking out Thiago Alves at the time. He was he had one loss at the time, but he was, I believe, undefeated in the UFC and had a lot of momentum behind him. Shout out to Thiago Alves, big fan of his. He's over in the BKFC scene now. I've seen him around the way over here in South Florida. He used to have the G-Wagon, I think it was. He used to have the license plate said Pitbull. You'd see him driving down by the bars, by Brews Room. I've seen him. And he's a nasty fighter, but that was a big win for Staropoli. Obviously, the Pitbull, it was on the downslope of his career. He was a little bit aged, but This is a big fight right here for Staropoli, because if he doesn't win this fight, we're talking about 3 losses in a row. The trains will really be off the track. He might be let go from the UFC. This is a big fight for both these guys here. I like Roman here. I think Roman will be just a little bit of the more powerful fighter in regards to the striking. I think he'll be a little bit stronger in the clinch. Staropoli is going to have to use his speed and try to maybe get this fight to the later rounds. Maybe if he has better cardio, he can try to light up Roman in the later rounds and take the fight there. But again, Staropoli also has some nasty striking too. So we've seen him go in there and style on guys. But I don't think he's finishing a guy and Roman Dolidze, the tough Georgian fighter there. Line right around -155. Makes sense to me. And I like Roman here. And yeah, Roman will throw some wild stuff in there too. I think he was throwing some type of spinning back fist. We've seen him do some wild things in there. All right, we're cruising through the main card. Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Miguel Baeza. Santiago Ponzinibbio. I met this guy in person. A really cool dude. Had a long layoff from the octagon here. His previous fight before his last fight was 2 years and 6 months ago. Then he steps back in there. So at the time, 2 years and 2 months since his last fight. Had some injury problems and whatnot. It seemed like he had that all cleared up and ready to go. I think the ring rust was real there for him though. Gets knocked out by Jingliang Li, the Leech. Was not a good look for him there. He was a big favorite going into that fight. And now he's going into this fight as a dog against the young, hungry up-and-comer Miguel Baeza. Young, about to be 29 years old, so maybe not as young as you would think, I guess. But as far as his career goes, only 10 professional fights, doesn't have a lot of mileage. He's very cerebral in there, has very good striking defense, doesn't take a lot of shots. He tries to be very cautious in there, picks his shots. He's very accurate, nasty leg kicks, nasty power in the hands. I've made money on Miguel. I've chatted it up with Miguel on Instagram. He's a really cool dude. He's down here in South Florida as well. I believe he's over in Davie, but MMA Masters in Miami. But I believe he also trains out in Davie, just close to Miami. And he has a lot of potential. Been handling business since Dana White's Contender Series. Defeated Victor Reina. Was a tough fighter. Took out Hector Aldana by way of knockout. Took out Matt Brown. Made some money there. That was an epic fight. That was an official play of mine there. And then he just finished Takashi Sato. Had some money on that as well. So I'm taking Miguel Baeza here. I like him. I like him to win this fight. -140. Slight favorite. Take a look at the line here. The live line. So yeah, a little bit of action coming in on Ponzinibbio. So, you could monitor that line. Maybe you can get it better or whatnot. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that do like Ponzinibbio. Obviously, coming back after that long layoff, maybe he's a little bit more accustomed to the octagon, being back in there again. Maybe he'll be more comfortable and we'll see a better performance by him. Because when he does put it together, he is nasty on the feet. He has nasty striking, very beautiful leg kicks. So if he does show up, this has all the makings to be a really good fight. We've seen Baeza hurt at times, not really that often, but yeah, the Matt Brown fight, I think he did hurt him with a little something. But Baeza's cautious in there, and I think he can avoid the big shot from Santiago and then take over that fight there. That was an absolute war. That was the Matt Brown fight, Baeza and Matt Brown. That was a war, and that was Ponzinibbio going to sleep there, man. That was a little bit tough to watch. Because I do like the dude. He was a really nice guy when I met him. So tough to see him go out like that. Would like to see him bounce back, maybe with the victory, depending where my action is, if I even have action on that fight. All right, we're at the co-main event. We got Breese taking on Antônio Arroyo. Both these guys coming off losses. Both of these guys showed to have major holes in their grappling and takedown defense, right? Breese showed once again that he has holes in his grappling, getting submitted by Omari Akhmedov. Thought maybe he was cleaning some of that up, knocking out a guy in KB Bular, but obviously we didn't see much of the grappling exchanges there, but we're hoping that he's trying to fix some of that, right? Brendan Allen was able to work him there. on the mat, pretty much destroyed him down on the mat. So Tom Breese, a guy that has all the talent in the world, but needs to work on his takedown defense. But this is an excellent fight for him because Antonio Arroyo looked absolutely horrible in regards to the grappling and his own right there. Fighting Darren Wynn. He was the way larger man in there. This was a fight he should have easily won. He dropped the ball, could not stuff the takedowns from Darren Wynn at all. And I know Wynn has some wrestling background experience. He has some wrestling experience, but we've seen guys like Gerald Mearshart stuff his takedowns. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to stuff his takedowns when you have such a size advantage and whatnot. So now this was Tom Breese getting submitted by Akhmedov. And I think this fight's going to take place on the feet. And I'm going to take Tom Breese to win here. I think Tom Breese flashes in those types of situations. Tom Breese has been around the way for a long time. I remember watching him fight way back in the day. Even though he's only 29 years old and doesn't have a lot of fights, he's been in the octagon a long time ago. He's been in there for a while. So the frames on these guys are they're identical, 6'3", with both of them having a 73.5-inch reach. Very impressive frames. I've been impressed with both of these guys. If they could just put their overall game together, they could be very good. You know, I made money on Antonio Arroyo on his fight on Dana White's Contender Series against Stephen Regman. Looked good in that fight. He was the bigger man there, though. Regman was he's really a welterweight fighter that bumped up, but still. I like Tom Breese here. I think Tom Breese will be the overall more talented fighter and the better striker. And Antonio Arroyo was not impressive in his last fight. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Breese there. But that line's a little crazy to me, minus 250. I don't know. I think this will be kind of a striking matchup, and we'll see how it plays out. All right, we're at the co-main event. Walt Harris taking on Marcin Tybura. Shout out to Walt Harris, one of the cooler guys in the game. He is coming off 2 losses, though. Lost to Alexander Volkov, lost to Alistair Overeem, 2 big names in the division. We know the big ticket has firecrackers in his hands. This guy will pop on you. He'll knock you out. We've seen him go in there and knock dudes out like Alexei Oleinik, Sergey Spivak. And even if you run the table back, he's had some nice finishes here in the UFC. Definitely needs to work on the management of his cardio and not blowing his load. We saw that in the Overeem fight, right? Remember, he hurt Overeem, almost got the finish there, but then gassed out, and Overeem beat him up pretty bad. That was a tough fight too. He just lost his stepdaughter, and at the time right before that fight. And I'm a fan of Walt Harris's. I like him here. I like him. I do not like him here to win this fight, though. I do like Marcin Tybura. Tybura has been looking really, really impressive as of recently. This is a guy, he's in a 4-fight win streak. And it kind of reminds me in a way of Jan Blachowicz. Not to that extent, but a guy that, they're both from Poland, but a guy that started to put his career together a little bit later. People never really looked at him like he was that impressive. He had some spots where he really dropped the ball. But all of a sudden, you see the growth in their game later in their career. Because Tybura has been looking really tough. He's given guys issues with his striking, his grappling, his pace. He's really just been looking good. Excuse me, guys, man. I'm losing my voice over here. A long day chatting it up. But, Tybura has been looking good. 4 fights in a row. Has the cardio edge here. If Walt Harris doesn't get the knockout, Marcin Tybura is going to win this fight. I really believe that. I think Walt Harris has to get the knockout or at least look really good in those first 2 rounds, but I don't see Walt Harris really controlling this fight in the 3rd round. I'd be really surprised if we do see that. Harris is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, has a nice reach for the division, and 2-inch height advantage. He's the bigger dude. He's more physically fit, more explosive, but I still like Tybura to win this fight here. And this is the first of our 2 big heavyweight fights here. So we'll see how this plays out. The line right around minus 150 for Tybura. Again, this card is a little strange to me. I understand a lot of the lines, they're accurate, but I feel a little iffy about a couple of these fights, and I think there's some traps out there. So you guys better be careful with some of these fights, I'm telling you guys. So that takes us to the main event. Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Augusto Sakai. Before we get into this, real quick, guys, please, again, just hit that like button for me. Hit that subscribe. Please help me out over here. It does go a long way. For those of you guys that are interested in my official plays, if you're interested in my pricing, I got the email and my Instagram, Twitter, all that down below. Shoot me a message. But again, I do appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you, guys. Now, we got this big main event fight. I want to talk about Jairzinho here for a second. If you guys remember, man, Jairzinho bursted on the UFC scene and was just knocking dudes out in a crazy fashion multiple times. Just knocking dudes out, shutting their lights off. If you remember, all these fights. The Junior Albini fight was a nasty knockout. The Alan Crowder knockout was probably his most impressive knockout. Just absolutely just flipped the switch and cut the lights out as he leaned over him and ground and pounded him. Took out Andrei Arlovsky. Took out Alistair Overeem at the very last seconds of the fight. He was losing the beginning of that fight, though. Undefeated up until that point. Loses to Francis Ngannou. Comes back with the knockout over Junior Dos Santos. Let's not forget that. That was an official play of mine, too. And then he had a tough time with Cyril Gane. You take a look at these two losses, though. Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane. We're talking about very, very high caliber opponents. So let's not put him under the fire too much there. He's getting a more... how do I want to say that? He's getting an opponent that's more on his level, in my opinion. Because quite honestly, I don't really think he's on the level of Cyril Gane or Francis Ngannou at the moment. I think he has potential to be back to that level, but Cyril Gane really just styled on him. He was so hesitant. He didn't want to engage, and he was scared to throw, sit there and throw in the fire. And Gane just completely outpointed him and styled on him. Augusto Sakai will be a little bit slower in there. He has some heavy power though as well. Augusto showed to have a lot of heart in his last fight. The fight where he was finished by Alistair Overeem in the 5th round. He had some moments in that fight against Alistair, but you had to be impressed with his heart, continuously going forward in that fight. And we know that Augusto has some power too. We've seen him knock out guys like Tybura, who's extremely durable. We've seen him knock out guys like Chase Sherman, and then he had that win against Marcos Conrado Jr. on Dana White's Contender Series, where he really made a name for himself. And if you guys remember, actually, if you do remember him in the Bellator scene, that's right. He was undefeated up until that point against where he lost against Czech Congo, and that was an extremely boring fight. That's where Czech continuously does what he always does and just holds his fighters against the cage. So bounce back with a bunch of victories here. Loses to Overeem. So, never lost back-to-back fights here. He's going back to the drawing board. I know he's extremely motivated. I hope that he's working on the diet. I do. I hope that he's working on the diet and the conditioning. I do think that there's some weight that he could shed, and I think he could have a little bit of better cardio in there. But he's extremely durable. The shots that he was taking from Overeem, he was all bloodied up. He really took a lot of damage that not a lot of other fighters would. So he might be able to eat those big shots from Rozenstruik, which, we talked about Rozenstruik's knockout power. This fight might be going to the later rounds. Maybe Sakai's a little bit more active in there than Rozenstruik, or Rozenstruik might be a little bit more confident in a fight like this with the lower level caliber opponent where he could kind of let his hands go. This is going to be a good fight to really see where Rozenstruik is at mentally, because if he doesn't show up for this fight, it's really not a good look for him. He might be a little bit scarred from that Francis Ngannou knockout. But 33 years old, there's no reason why he shouldn't show up to this fight and be ready to throw down against Augusto. 6'4" to a Sakai 6'3". He has a 1-inch reach advantage. So, on paper, he has some things going for him there. He's just as big as Sakai. Sakai is going to be a little bit heavier. And, Sakai has that big head, man, that big, durable Frankenstein head. And this is going to be a good fight, right? Let's make the best of this, man. This is a good main event fight. When they come out and they're throwing down, I'm going to be tuned in and excited to watch this fight. I'm going to roll with my boy, Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He has the kickboxing experience. I think he'll be a little bit more talented on the feet if he has his confidence going for him. But keep an eye on Sakai's power. Sakai has some power. And also keep in mind, Sakai, people think that he's slow. He's extremely slow, which he's a little slow, but he has little flashes when his cardio's there, when he's fresh. He has some flashes of some speed in his hands. So keep an eye on those hands as well. But I'm going to go with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. The line's close here. So if you like either of these guys, I know you guys have opportunities to bet on either of them. I know there'll be some of you guys that like Sakai as well. I'm going to edge Jairzinho. He just better not be super inactive in this fight and just blow a decision, though. And we'll see how this fight plays out. I'm excited for it. Thank you guys for sticking with me here all the way to the end. Shout out to you guys. And again, reach out to me if anybody has any questions or whatnot. Reach out to me. It's all below. You guys see it. And you guys all have an amazing rest of your week. My Florida Panthers are in a do or die type of situation. Hopefully you guys will cross your fingers for my Panthers. And they can come through, get a victory here against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The series is 3-1. First to 4 moves on. And yeah, we're making money all types of ways over here, man. We've been making money on baseball, hockey, but nothing pays the bills like MMA. This is the bread and butter, man. This is the sport we put the most time into, and it's the greatest sport on God's beautiful green earth. All right, guys. So on that note, signing out. The teller. The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.